Well, good morning. It's Thursday, March 26th. It was a beautiful sunny morning, but it looks like we're in for some rain. It's starting to come down, but it's another day that God has given to us to live the lives that He's blessed us with. And this is going to be a day that won't be much unlike the last several. As we radically alter our lives for the time being. We pray that this will dissipate and we can get back to normal as soon as possible. But when we find ourselves in a situation like this, I don't know about you, but I have found myself appreciating what I've taken for granted. Certainly, I've been struck by the sense of loss. Just by the fact that I haven't been able to experience worship alongside you, our church family. I miss the buzz of activity that happens on a Sunday morning before church. I miss the singing together, right? We've only kind of missed a couple Sundays, but I sense that loss, and I'm sure many of you do as well. And so I sense the loss, but at the same time, I have a deeper appreciation for those gifts that God has given us to experience so often together. All these worship times that we get to experience together, it's been a real blessing as I look back. There's something else I've come to appreciate, actually, more so in these strange times, and it's the season of spring that we find ourselves in. The season of spring is one of my favorites, actually. I love the sense of things coming back to life. The increased amount of sunshine each day. Seeing those crocuses pushing through the hardened ground. The big snow pile I can see outside my office window gradually disappearing. It kind of gives me a sense, okay, spring is coming. And of course, the singing and the chirping of the birds. Now, I have to admit that while spring is one of my favorite seasons, I have found this spring to be particularly uplifting, especially the last number of days. Well, of course, except for the snow dusting we had this past Monday, but that's okay. The snow's gone, the sun has come back. Now, living just outside of town, it's about a kilometer walk from our house to the church. It's almost a perfect distance to leave the vehicle at home when I don't need it and to walk to church and get a good amount of steps in. The past couple of days, I've walked to church. And I've been more acutely aware of my surroundings. Perhaps because I'm looking for signs. I'm looking for signs of hope in life in the midst of these rocky and unstable moments we're all living through. And on those walks, the singing and the chirping of the birds back and forth to one another seemed so much more clear. There seems to be so much more life and hope. Now, I'm not a bird watcher by any stretch, but I watched them more closely these past couple of mornings. I watched as the birds flew freely, no particular flight path from one branch to another. And what I was watching part of creation, our creation, doing what it was created to do. That there was this normalcy about what I was seeing. And it was so good to be reminded that there are still some constants, some consistency, some normalcy to life. And the virus can't hold back the crocuses and the daffodils. It can't hold back the birds singing. It can't hold back the sun shining brighter and for longer periods of time. And it can't overcome the biblical truth that God's mercies are new every day. It can't overcome the fact that His compassion will never fail us. I want to share with you this morning from a reading from the Bible, from the book of Lamentations. Now, the author of Lamentations is generally thought to be Jeremiah, the prophet. And from the word lamentations, we get the word lament. And that word lament can mean a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. Lamentations is definitely a passionate expression of grief or sorrow, primarily over the destruction of Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem in 586 BC. In the very first verse of chapter 1, we read this: "How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she, who once was great among the nations." Some words of a lament right away in the first chapter of Lamentations. And then later in chapter 3, Jeremiah expresses his own personal lament. He speaks of affliction in verse 19. He speaks of being downcast in his soul. Sounds like depression in verse 20. And then the verses 21 to 24. It's like crocuses pushing through the hardened soil comes words of life and hope. And this is what he writes. All of this, all the lament, and then it comes this, verse 21. "Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore I will wait for him." You know, there's a lot for us to be lamenting over. There's a lot for us to be expressing some deep grief or sorrow. I mean, reading the news stories gives us lots of reason to do that. Medical staff having to choose which patients to give a ventilator to because there isn't enough to go around. There's not enough PPE, which is personal protection equipment, to go around for a medical staff, and they're having to do things on the fly and be creative. And how about our own ability to care for our loved ones because of restrictions? And in the midst of our lament, there is this constant message of hope that we can hold on to, that God's mercies are new every morning. Every morning. And we find those mercies in and through Jesus Christ, who laid down his life so that we may have life in him. And he promises this to those who follow him, that he will keep us strong, spiritually strong, to the end. That's 1 Corinthians 1, verse 8. And we can remember that the Spirit that God has given to us helps us in our weakness. Those are the constants we can hold on to. Those are the things that we can hold on to at this time. So I want to encourage you to read perhaps that passage from Lamentations for words of hope. I also want to encourage you to be praying for the church, for those that especially needy right now, those that are suffering, those that feel really isolated and lonely. I'm really encouraged by how our church family is just loving one another. I love the fact when I hear stories that there are people that are buying groceries for those that are unable to leave their homes. I love the fact that people are calling one another and praying with one another. Let's keep doing that. Let's keep doing that as a church family. Again, I just want to offer that if you want to give us a call, if you just want to chat, call Pastor Daniel or myself or your elder. We'd love to just chat with you and pray with you. If we can do that, that would be wonderful. Well, the Lord bless you today, and we'll catch you on Sunday. Please be looking for the email with the link to the YouTube service. And the Lord bless you.